Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another STAMPtember video. This video features the exclusive limited edition stamp set Shimmering Season from Gina K. The Gina K stamp set is always super popular, so if you think that you want this at all, stop the video right now, pause, go click the link down in the description below, go purchase it, and then come back. This is a great opportunity to go do that because her sets generally do sell out very, very quickly. Remember, when the STAMPtember exclusive limited edition sets are gone, they are gone. This is a 6x8 stamp set, and I wanted to do some one-layer wonder cards today with this stamp set using multi-embossing. This is one of my favorite effects, especially with anything wintry, snowflake, all of that good stuff. So there are some tips and tricks. We're going to even incorporate some of the distressed mica stains into the designs today. That's something I haven't done in the past. And we're going to have some fun with some kind of non-traditional colors perhaps. I'm using Sage Green and Moon Dust Lawn Fawn cardstocks. We are going to create full panel backgrounds because this main image, this main beautiful image, is nice and large. And I don't want to cut off any of it for this particular design. So I am using the 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel, and I really wanted to show kind of my thought process and how I lay out a card. I know that I did this for one of my other STAMPtember videos at least, and I hope that you find it helpful to see kind of how I think it out, how I pre-plan before I ever take ink to paper. And for me, this just really helps me visualize where I want to go with the design. Will there be some twists and turns along the way? Sometimes there are. Sometimes there aren't. But for me, I find it very, very helpful. So once I have it laid out kind of the way I want, I am going to place one of my backgrounds in the Misty, the one that I laid everything out. And now we're going to start kind of removing things. We're going to remove most of it, but leave several of the images that I want to stamp, because if I can stamp more than one thing at a time, that is what I want to do. I'm trying to eliminate the need for lots of switcheroos here. I just want to keep this super, super easy, especially because I want to create multiples. Now, if you're creating multiples, you could have even more background panels ready to go, and you wouldn't have to add quite as much as I'm adding here. Maybe you just want to concentrate on the large image, and that's it. That is totally fine. And maybe you pick up the stamp and coordinating die set, so you want to die cut some of the images. That is awesome as well. I am using an embossing ink. I did use the Simon Says Stamp powder tool before I ever inked up my paper. And because I haven't used this image yet, and it's pretty big, I inked and stamped it twice. That's where the Misty comes in so handy. Now, the colors of embossing powder I'm using today are Antique Gold, Silver, and White from Simon Says Stamp. I'm kind of traditional this way. I like the silver, gold, and white for my snowflake background cards, but I briefly considered the Tim Holtz glazes, and I do think that that would be really fun to revisit in the future for other stamp sets. So maybe I'll do that for something else. We shall see as the month goes on. But I just really love the look of multicolor embossing, and it's pretty easy. So I feel like if you set yourself up in assembly line style, it helps tremendously. I am heating up my panel. You'll notice that I'm going to stamp. I'm going to sprinkle on the embossing powder and heat. Then we'll move on to the second background before we move on to the second set of stamps. And I think this is good because we don't want that embossing ink to start drying. Now, I do find this embossing ink stays wet for a pretty long time. However, I have just found in the past that if your ink pad, isn't super juicy or whatever, maybe you want to just heat, and I've gotten the habit of that. I just heat after each panel. So let's do our moonstone panel. Inking it up, and I've got just my big image and then my 2 small snowflakes. And you could do this in any order. I will say one of my design choices and reasoning for how I go about the colors I pick, I want to stamp that large scripty Christmas across the center of this as a layering element, not on a separate piece of paper that I've die cut and added. And I knew I wanted to do that in white. I feel like white is going to show up the best. So I kept everything else that's going to be behind it in a different color, and that was purposeful. So you may note it, in case you were wondering kind of like why I chose a certain embossing color over another, that is why. Okay, on the other half of the MISTI, if you have the standard MISTI, this is great because you can just go ahead and line up your next set of stamps. So I want to use that awesome hanger, which is great because it makes that beautiful snowflake image into an ornament. Kind of that medallion, is that what it's called? I might be wrong about that. Anyway, it turns it into an ornament. Any of these you could hang any of the snowflakes, especially the bigger ones, I think would be really cute. So I am stamping my next set of images, and this time we're going to go with white. So the hanger and a couple of the other snowflakes will be white this time, and we're going to heat set. Now you may notice that the video has sped up quite a lot. That is to save time. My goal with my STAMPtember exclusive limited edition videos this year, because they are midnight Eastern releases, is to keep them under 20 minutes, under 15 if I can. And most of them will be. Some may be a little bit longer, just depending on what I'm doing in the video, but that is my goal. And that is for our East Coast or even Central Time Zone, which is where I am, friends, or if you are at other places in the world and it's super early in the morning, I want to keep it at kind of at a reasonable length of video, just for you guys, so that you can come hang out with us, because these videos are all live premieres, meaning I'm live in the chat, and then head to bed if that's where you are, and you are ready for bed. Now I know our West Coast friends get this a little bit earlier, which is so awesome, but I'm trying it out this year. I'm always trying to improve. Next, we are adding some of the images plus that beautiful big lacy snowflake in the middle. This is going to be my silver stamping. So we've kind of done the gold, white. We're going to do some silver now, and we're going to stamp that Christmas right over the top of the antique gold and silver, and it's going to work out because we're using the MISTI. I cannot stress enough that a stamp positioner is going to be so important for this, especially if you are mass producing or making multiples like I'm doing in this video. You do not want to try to stamp all of these individually, line everything up, and when we get to the word Christmas, I'm going to show you that if you didn't have a stamp positioner, you might be frustrated, because it does require stamping and embossing twice to be bold enough to show up. So I am adding my silver for my second background. And another thing I want to note about this card has a lot of different techniques. We have multicolor embossing. We have embossed resist. We are going to ink around these edges with some inks to richen the backgrounds, to really give it the vibrancy that the holiday suggests, and we're even going to sprinkle distress mica stain. So while they are one layer wonders, as I like to call them, they have lots of beautiful elements that elevate them for that elegance feel. That's one of my favorite things about Gina's sets, is it brings the elegance. So now I'm stamping some more images that are going to be white, in addition to the word Christmas, because I'm already stamping it, so I felt like this was a great time to fill in some of those open areas with more tiny snowflakes. And I am embossing. Now see how it fades into the other embossing behind it just a little bit? That's not really what I'm going for. I want it to be bold. So after I heat embossed it, I stamped it again because I haven't removed it from my MISTI, and I've added another layer of embossing powder, and that second layer of embossing powder makes all of the difference. So now that I know that, I'm going to plan on that for the second background. Part of the reason being that this happens is that the embossing powder behind, as you're heating it, almost it melts again, if you will, because it has melted, but you can kind of reheat it. It's not necessarily going to melt, but I think it kind of absorbs some of the white into the color back behind. Another layer fixes that right up, and really happy. It's very easy to read. Oh my goodness, they're so pretty. So I am going to add just a few more things. This is part of the reason I sped the video up, is because I get to this point in the creation, and this is where my extra comes in, and I'm like, oh, well, let's fill in some more snowflakes here and here, which is just me. I love to have all of the beautiful colors. So once we have this, it is time to add some embossed resist around the edges. And like I said, it's going to just make the background so rich and beautiful. My blue colors of ink that I am using today, all of these are Pawsitively saturated ink. I am using Twilight and Galaxy. I felt like these inks perfectly matched this Moonstone cardstock. So I went around the edges first with Twilight and then Galaxy. One of the benefits of ink blending over colored cardstock is that you kind of don't have to add as much ink and to get that beautiful ombre effect. Obviously, I left it basically the cardstock color in the center of the large snowflake. And then I blended the two other colors around the edges, which just makes it so beautiful. It will smooth out a bit as the ink dries, and I buffed away any ink sitting on top of the embossed areas with a dry rag. We're going to use Sage and Pine inks for the green background. Same thing as before, going around those edges, just kind of giving it a more rich look for this beautiful, elegant card. Inking and inking, and then we're going to go around with Pine, buff away the ink, and then we're going to play with mica stains because I can't get enough of them. I love the Distress Mica stains. I am going to use a couple of new colors, but I'm also going to go back to a previously released mica stain color. Thank you, Tim Holtz, for bringing out his past mica stain colors in individuals so you can fill in your collection if you've used some things up. Now, the key with mica stains, you want to make sure you mix these up, shake them. There's a little ball in the container. You want to hear that rattle around, and you want to look at the bottom of your shaker and make sure there's no mica stains in the bottom. Once that is the case, spritz away. I tried to hold it pretty far up. I'm not trying to cover the cardstock, but instead I want it to have just these shimmery mica, more of that snowy feel all over. And then my new favorite color of the season, you guys, this is Frozen Fog. This is one of Tim's new colors for holiday, and it is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. If you have caught my video with Picket Fence, I use that on that as well. I use the new trio, the Yuletide, Juniper Berry, and Frozen Fog for those three cards, and it's absolutely my favorite. And in fact, this is Juniper Berry right here for the blue, and I love it because when it dries, it almost has a tealish little sparkle to it, and then a little Frozen Fog as well. Now, I do want to show you what I did because some of these splatters are going to be on top of my text, and I don't like that. I'm going to heat it up just a tiny little bit to dry some of it, and then I'm going to take just a tiny corner. You could take a Q-tip even if you wanted to, and I'm going to buff away the Distress Mica stain off of my greeting, and then I'm going to heat and dry that mica stain. I love it because it just adds to the snowy feel that I was going for. You can also splatter with gouache, with paint, with watercolor, with inks, whatever you like to splatter with. Now I want my additional greeting from the stamp set. This is again called the Shimmering Season Stamp Set. I am stamping the word blessing in Pine and Twilight inks on white cardstock, die cutting with my favorite sentiment label dies from Simon Says Stamp, and we're going to pop this greeting right underneath. Now, if you're loving this Shimmering Season Stamp Set, again, I highly recommend that you use the link down below and you go purchase this right away because once it's gone, it's gone. Now, that being said, my goal with these videos is to encourage you to stamp or encourage and inspire you to stamp. You may have snowflake sets at home. Try this technique. You have inks, you might even have some mica stains or some other splatter. Try the multi-embossing. It doesn't necessarily have to be this stamp set at all. It's always just about the inspiration and inspiring you to try new and fun things, or maybe even just something you've tried in the past and you want to do again. Finally comes embellishment part. Now, what would a card be without a few baubles, especially a holiday card? And I think these snowflake images lend themselves perfectly for some little bits and bobs. So I have a couple of my favorite Trinity stamps, gems or pearls, I guess I should say, Crystal Blue and Mossy Morning. And again, you will notice I really went with non-traditional colors. Yes, I used green and I used blue, but I used kind of more, I don't know, muted colors of those. And just for something a little different and fun. Maybe not that pine-ish forest green, even though I did use pine ink. But I really just wanted to kind of do something a little different. So these little baubles, though, perfectly match. I am going to, of course, embellish the large snowflake all the way around. We're going to add some little pearls to the center of the some of the other snowflakes, not all. I felt like that might be overkill if I did all of them. I mean, I know I'm extra, but, and then we'll do the same thing for the green card. We will glue this panel to white top fold card bases, and here is what the finished cards look like. Look at the shimmer and shine on these beauties. Absolutely beautiful, elegant Christmas designs. Thank you guys so much for joining me for the STAMPtember Gina K Designs exclusive limited edition called Shimmering Season. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to click the notification bell to always be notified when there is a new video or I go live. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again next time.